Cortisi, please.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you to all the speakers for their presence at this webinar organized by Aquaculture Italia in the context of the Digital Seafood Trade Show. And my personal sincere wish for the success of this event. It's a real pleasure as President of Aquaculture Italia to open the works of this first webinar of the Digital Seafood Trade Show. This show was strongly desired by the board of Aquaculture Italia, an association constituted in 1986, which represents at the moment 120 companies, mostly Italian but also foreign, which embrace all fish sectors, primary production and fish products, fresh, transformed, and variously prepared and packaged. The commitment of the long preparative phase led us to a surprising result. 25 participated countries, 19 embassy and public institutions, 55 national companies, 40 foreign companies, representative of seafoods production, processing, transformation, and marketing. The show was organized in this pandemic period in order to create a live and enriched network between our associated companies and the national and international stakeholders of fish supply chain, which is indispensable to face and discuss the most important present and future problems of the fish sectors. Since raw material used by our companies are both of national and EU and non-EU origin, easy exchanges and imports and correctly regulated commercial relations are of fundamental importance for the growth of the fish chain and of vital interest not only for the national but also for the world economy. A conscious exploitation of the world fish resources is an important problem that cannot be ignored. A large part of seafood sold today is not certified or rated as sustainable. Traceability, blockchain, and the seafood industry sustainability credential may be useful in this context. A correct and not alarmistic information on fish food nutritional aspects may increase a conscious consumption. Public and private institutions, but also fishermen and retailers and people involved in the different forms of catering i.e. the first and deluxe actors of the first commercialization chain, may play an undiscussed role in giving information on seafoods from farm to fork. I come from, my background is a university and university research. And I believe that a continuous commitment in the field of research to guarantee the best quality sensory and hygienic characteristic of fish foods is a necessity that producer and society cannot ignore. Public and private institutions and companies must continue to prompt and finance projects able to reach faster useful results. Packaging is essential for commercialization, but requires ardent attention. Sensible consumers and businesses are increasing and consider technical plastic pollution as a priority. Research is actively trying to overcome the problems aroused from the use of plastic packagings. Not only macroplastic, but also microplastics, and to clarify the current threat to people and to the planet. Ocean health problems and climate changes need prompt attention to predict in advance their impact on both the future development of the whole fish chain and on nutritional security of the world population. There is a lot to do for everyone involved in at any level in the fish chain. Mr. Palma.
Yes.
I think we should give the word to Vera Agostini.
Yes. Thank you, President.
So you have the time to translate the message.
The message of
Battistoni. I think this is the best way to go on.
Yes. And I am very happy about your word, President, and I leave the floor to Vera Agostini, that is the people from FAO, but is most important this connection. Is director of a fishery division, because we have a great collaboration with the FAO. We are partner of Globefish FAO. We have a great connection, and we think that the FAO is fundamental for our fish chain, because the FAO study, the FAO indication, the FAO study can trace the way for the future, for the next year. And so we are very, very happy about the participation of Vera Agostini, and I leave the floor to FAO representative Vera Agostini, Director of Fishery Division of FAO. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today. And as Mr. Palma was saying, Asioitica is really a very important partner for us, and we've had long-standing relationships and communication with them. I don't want to take too much of your time because I know we have a pretty set schedule, but I wanted to share with you a presentation I've put together to give you a little bit of a sense of some of the priorities we see. So let me do that. Let me know when you see my presentation.
Perfect.
Okay, and you see it in full screen, correct? Yes, yes. Okay. Okay, so I wanted to tell you a little bit about this morning about the new frontiers we see on the fish supply chain. I have about 10 minutes, which of course is I can't cover all of the frontiers, but I will give you a flavor. I am going to start with just noting that a lot of the work that we do is framed around a very important concept for us, which is blue transformation. And that transformation has three components. One is around aquaculture, two is around fisheries, and three, of course, very important, focuses on the value chain. All of these are part of sustainability, so all of these need to be considered carefully. For today's presentation, I am going to focus on the value chain side of things. What you see in this slide are some of the priority areas that we at FAO see as critical to focus our work on. This is not a comprehensive list, but it gives you a flavor for some of the emerging priorities for us. In today's short talk, I wanted to focus on what you see highlighted in red. I want to talk a little bit about food loss and waste, food safety, and then of course, the importance of consumer preferences and education and awareness. All the others are critical, but in 10 minutes, you can imagine I can't cover them all. So these are the ones that I will focus on. But before we go, I'll give you a little bit of context, just some global numbers. As you know, the number of undernourished people, sadly, is growing rapidly in the last few years. And part of a solution to this is definitely food from the ocean. This pie chart represents that because in blue, you see the surface area of the planet that's covered by water. And as you can see, that's a very large portion of the planet. So from here, food from the sea is getting more and more attention as an important component of, for us at FAO, where we focus so much on hunger, a way to solve this. Now, when it comes to global fish production, you see here some of the numbers. And the point with this plot is that to illustrate that it's growing rapidly at very steep curve at the moment, especially when it comes to aquaculture. Now, some numbers to represent this here on the right, you see that aquaculture production is 250% higher, fish trade over 300%, per capita fish consumption has increased 37% higher, and the volume of fish not for food is decreased. Now, that also, of course, translates into trade. Here you see some of the aquaculture and fish production destined for export. And then you see that production is in the blue and exports is in the red. So there's a 38% increase of all fish produced that is exported. I trust many of you are experiencing this in your business, in your day-to-day lives, whether as individuals and in your business. Now, sadly, I'm going to go to the first topic that I want to do a little bit of a dive into, and that's food loss and waste. Unfortunately, a lot of this production does not get to the consumer, and when it does, it still gets wasted. 35% of fish and seafood is lost, and 8% of the fish caught globally is thrown back into the sea. And the waste part of the equation really happens along the distribution and consumption part of the value chain. Now, the global importance of food loss was acknowledged in 2002 at the UN conference, the Rio Plus 20, and the SDGs, of course, recognize this. Food loss and waste really is a major issue for food security and nutrition. Now, here on this next slide, you see some of the numbers that describe food loss and waste on the left. And on the right, I just wanted to represent the various scales along the at which this happens: fisheries, commercial, small scale, as well as aquaculture, and that this happens at many points along the value chain. So really all actors in the chain play a role in loss reduction and loss prevention. Next, I wanted to talk to you about consumer preferences, something that I know many of you are following very closely. They really are the starting point of food chains. And of course, they are diverse across the globe. Depending on where you are, you're going to see different consumer preferences. However, we can see that there's specific product attributes that there's demand for this, generally speaking. And I've included a list here. But again, I would like to focus for this presentation on quality, on health and nutrition, and then some of the social and environmental concerns. So let me start with quality and safety. This is really something that is become even more relevant because of the pandemic, COVID-19. But there's basically two major instruments that help us manage this. And I wanted to highlight them here. One is the SPS by the World Trade Organization. And the other one is the Codex Alimentarius, something that we're engaged very heavily in both of these, we at the FAO side. And these are really critical as they help us really put in place some standards for food quality and safety. Now, health and nutrition, along with the increased demand for quality of food, of course, there goes an increased focus on health and nutrition. And within that, there's a growing awareness of the importance of fish as food and consumption. This is really important for us. Fish is recognized as part of a healthy diet. And of course, as those of us who live in the Med know, we know this is a critical part of the Mediterranean diet. Now, this is really becoming more and more important, again, also because of COVID-19. Now, another aspect I wanted to cover was the importance of transparency. Transparency and access to information are key for fish production, distribution, and trade. Now, the responsibility for this lies not only with governments, but all stakeholders involved. And it's not just restricted to pre-harvest. It naturally goes alongside the fisheries value chain. It looks at many different things: vessel identification and operation, product traceability, consumer information. And there's a number of tools and instruments that have been developed that are related to this. And one to flag is the FITI, the Fisheries Transparency Initiative, which is really something that is something important. We are involved in this, and it bridges many elements of the fish value chain. Now, it focuses on fisheries management, on fishing vessel activity, and product traceability. Now, another aspect that plays into transparency is, of course, certification. This was born as a market-based incentive as for better management of fisheries through consumer demand for seafood products that are well managed and come from sustainable fisheries and aquaculture. There has been a proliferation of private certification schemes, campaigns, and eco-labels. And this has basically led to the development of international guidelines to help with looking at certification. And I've represented them here. They were developed both for marine, inland, as well as aquaculture. And there are also some resources. I've put some websites here, if in case any of you wanted to follow up in this particular area of certification and eco-labeling. So there's a lot of really good instruments that have been put out there to support companies, stakeholders that are looking to certify their products. You know, obviously safety and quality are important, but consumers, both in developed and developing economies, have been increasingly interested in social and environmental impacts of the food they consume. And certification is an excellent way to explain and be transparent about some of those aspects. Now, in closing, I just wanted to go back to some of the key take-home messages that I've highlighted. One is, of course, I've talked about food loss and waste. And I think a critical message here is that all actors along the value chain have a key role in preventing and reducing this. And I trust that many of you are looking at this carefully. In terms of consumer preferences, there is obviously an increasing demand in product attributes, and the pandemic has only increased that. And those attributes include quality, safety, health and nutrition, and social and environmental concerns. Now, this really represents both an opportunity for the seafood sector as well as challenges. And we all need to take this into account as we think about strategies to meet our consumer preferences. And lastly, I've highlighted the importance of transparency, which is key for fish production, distribution, and trade. And again, here as well, the responsibility for this relies with all the stakeholders involved, not just government, but also private sector, academia, research, stakeholders. So these are really the three main things that I want to highlight from this presentation. And again, thank you for inviting me and having me here. That is all I have.
Thank you, Vera, for your precious intervention. You are analyze different topics that for us are very, very interesting. One of these is the waste, the fish waste. We know that we lose a lot of food, a lot of fish during the fish chain, especially in the last part, final part of the fish chain. And we analyze this problem, and we start some study with our company to reduce the impact of the waste in the fish chain, because we need to use all the fish that we catch and we farm. And your analysis is very, very interesting about that, and we hope to work together about that, and to give some information to our company and the company in the fish chain about a new strategy. In fact, your intervention is in this new system of communicating the food chain. Digital 3D seafood show is a new concept, and fish chain, I think that need a new concept. And the researcher, the academia can help our company to introduce new system. And at this moment, I leave the floor to the chair to President of Assoitica to introduce the new speaker. Please, President Cortesi. Deve attivare il microfono.
Yes, before we have more time, So before giving the word to the next speaker, I wish to give some comments, some positive comments to the presentation of Vera Agostini. She underlined some important concept that Assoitica is considering in a practical way. What we have to do to diminish losses, to increase transparency, to speak of eco-fisheries, and to follow consumer preference. This is a way that our producer, our companies had to consider during the COVID pandemic period, and they were able to change their products to meet consumers' requests in this new period, which was so difficult to overcome. And the other, all of what you said, Vera, has a main goal, a main objective, to increase per capita fish consumption, but from fisheries or aquaculture that are eco-friendly. This is an important message to give, and I'm very proud that you, in a more beautiful and visible way, repeated some of the concepts that I gave you in my introductional opening of this webinar. And if Dr. Palma agree, do you think to read the message of Francesco Battistoni, or to give the floor to Miss Dr. Ramdini?
I prefer to give some information about the message of Battistoni, because we speak a lot in the morning.
Yes,
and
it is in and so we respect the brochure of this webinar. Okay.
Yes.
Thank
Perfect.
you, Mr.
Thank you to you, thank you to you, President. I speak with Undersecretary Battistoni, and he was very busy, especially in the morning, because at the Senate he discussed for us an important law, especially about the organic production, that for us, especially in aquaculture, obviously, is very, very important. And he needed to stay in the Senate, and for him it's impossible to stay there. But I wanted to summarize the word of Undersecretary Battistoni. He was agree with us about the opportunity to increase the technology in the fish chain. The technology of fish chain is fundamental, because we need to organize the production, catch and aquaculture, and reorganize all the fish chain during the commercial chain. In this way, we can explain, we can organize the production and the use of this product. In fact, before I speak about the waste, for the ministry, it's very, very important to reorganize the system to use the waste. In fact, Assoetica in this period study a system to reuse the shell of shellfish, to reuse this waste. This is only one of our study. The second aspect, the Undersecretary says to us to organize a new system of dialogue between the partner of the fish chain. Usually in Italy and in other parts of the world, the actors of the fish chain don't speak together, and the production, catch and aquaculture don't speak with the commercialization, processing, and the consumer. We need to put together on the same table these actors, these people, because if from one side we have the consumer that want to eat much more fish, we need the world of the production, aquaculture and catch, to explain the way to produce, the ethical aspect, the sustainability. We need to explain to that consumer. And the FAO study from 10 years says to us that the consumer want to eat fish, much more fish. And we need to speak with these people that want to eat the fish. This other aspect, Battistoni says, the official control. We have in Italy a special official control, veterinarian, Guardia Coast, and other kind of competent authority that control the fish. But the feeling of the consumer is not so clear because they don't understand the way to fish, the way to produce, the way to commercialize. So we need in this round table that I speak before to explain to the consumer what we do to produce a safe food and with a great quality. And the last thing of Undersecretary is the innovation that we do with our fair. I think that this is the first time that we do this fair. In 2 hours of work of this fair, I contact some attendees and some exhibitors, and they are very, very happy about this new fair because in connection with the world of Vera, they stay at home in office and they don't spend any money to travel and to accommodation. So our fair is eco-friendly because we don't use we don't spend money and inquinamento, Presidente, inquinamento non mi viene. Pollution. Pollution. Thank you. So probably this is for us a test, this fair, but this is the new strategy, one of the new strategy to protect our environment and especially our sea. So I leave the floor to President Cortesi to the last intervention. Thank you.
No, we have Dr. Randini.
Yes.
He's present. He was present. Please, doctor. Thank you for participating. We are waiting your presentation.
Thank you, President Potesi. Thank you, speakers and attendees for this opportunity. I hope that the presentation can be seen by everyone. Yes, perfect. So,
yes.
Very quickly, I am from the Economic Development Board and responsible for the ocean economy sector, services sector, and emerging sectors. So I like to share a little bit some insights with you and piggyback on what has been said before and moving further. And of course, taking into consideration the specific, I would say, the specificities of Mauritius and the Mauritian EEZ, but moving forward and giving a broader insights of how our specific intentions and our specific strategies with regard to fisheries and aquaculture within the broad strategy of the ocean economy are linked to sustainability issues, but also opportunities. So in a gist, for those who don't know, Mauritius is a small country of around 2,040 kilometers square, but with an exclusive economic zone of 2.3 million kilometers square. So on the basis of this, there has been the strategization of a whole ocean economy development plan, very much comprehensive, through a number of I would say, which is explicited in several documents, namely the 2017 documents drafted by the World Bank, which is available on the web, on the internet, named Making It Happen, Making It Last. And the very title of this, Making It Happen, Making It Last, provides for a gist of the importance of sustainability such that the industry is sustainable over a large period of time. And the broad strategy defined in this document makes mention of the doubling of the ocean economy sector in 10 years, so basically by 2028, which is from the present contribution of 10.3% in the GDP. And one of the very interesting, I would say, graphics that I have taken from this document, I have shared it here, is the graphic that provides for a comparison of the job creation per USD invested and the benefit cost ratio per certain segments. And we see that with regard to job creation and with regard to the benefit ratio with regard to the specific segment, the fisheries and the seafood segment is very interesting, is more prominent, and this is very much important for our state beyond, of course, the other sectors. And then just for the matter of just giving you the broad perspective, we have within Mauritius, within the ocean economy strategy, a number of other sectors in which we are looking into. Beyond fishing aquaculture, we also have a very prominent and very dynamic port, bunkering, deep ocean water application, marine services, marine biotech, marine renewable energy, among others. But coming back to the more specific topic of discussion today, the fishing, seafood processing, and aquaculture segment, just to give you very specific figures on the Mauritian economy side, the fishing, seafood, aquaculture segment contributes to around 1.3% of the GDP and 20% of total exports. Mauritius ranks among the most important exporters in terms of overall EU canned tuna and loin exportation. We have 11 processing units approved for exportation to the EU, including Princess Tuna, which is the biggest one. There are high intent from the government to develop further this sector, namely with an upcoming full-fledged fishing port. And in terms of aquaculture, it is quite a nascent sector, but I'll come to that into details. I deep dive into those segments in some time. We have one actual industrial operator in the segment, and government is pushing a lot in terms of the development of off-lagoon aquaculture, so offshore aquaculture and inland aquaculture. And I wanted to share those data before moving further into some insights that I'd like to discuss. I put some insights that are linked to certain consideration that bring forward the importance of the whole aspect of sustainability, the whole aspect of what has been discussed before, the valorization of everything within the value chain, the waste and everything, the importance of giving higher value addition to the resources, and also the recognition of the trends in terms of consumer preferences. And coming to that, I think a few figures that I like to share and gives importance, very high importance to the aspect of sustainability, fisheries management, and the importance of waste management, among others, are first, that there are in the Indian Ocean, and particularly Mauritius, the focus of the fisheries is mainly on tuna and tuna-like species, right? So when we talk about tuna and tuna-like species, we are regulated, the whole management of these fisheries is done under the Indian Ocean Tuna Commission. It's very well known that despite established maximum sustainable yields, and I think this word is very important, is that most countries and most fisheries are bounded by the maximum sustainable yields that gives the opportunity and the framework to define the catch potential and also the valorization needs and the sustainability requirements. So taking into consideration of that, there has been over the years some issues with regard to certain species. I won't go into all the details, but with regard to certain species that has been linked and rightly so, and that is the need to certain quota definition and even quota reduction on certain catch level, and that would impact both the fishing industry and maybe the seafood industry. So the linkage to that, to the requirement of giving higher value addition to the products to be able to maintain the export level, will be extremely essential for us to be able to keep on the importance of this segment in the GDP. So the second aspect that I would like to share with everyone is that we have, yes, there is an issue and a need to align ourselves with certain quota restriction on certain species to be able to move further in certain segments, but to be able to keep running the industry and also employment among others, it is essential also to think about the new resources that can be sustainably harnessed. And there it is extremely, I would like to share the importance for us, Mauritius as a country, to define first a resource assessment for other species like demersal fisheries. Second, the ability to have adequate technology and support to be able to analyze untapped resources, unknown resources, deep and mid-ocean kind of resources, and what are the kind of valorization that can be embedded in that whole value chain. The other aspect also that we need to think about, and I mentioned about that, is aquaculture. The aquaculture segment provides for an immense opportunity for maintaining and restricting the wild catch level and which is in line with the restrictions in terms of quotas, etc. But even there, we need to keep in mind certain, I would say, certain complexities with regard to interaction with coastal activities and the requirement to move off lagoon where the technologies are quite complex. And I think, like what Mr. Palma mentioned is extremely important, is the discussion and communication between all stakeholders to be able to understand what are the complexities, what are the trends, what are the requirements, and to be able to advise on certain species that can be farmed and the potential of take such that it warrants investment in a sustainable manner in such complex, I would say, environments, but also segments. Beyond that, there is also, sorry, I would like to conclude maybe on the aspect of waste management and provide for one particular, I would say, example and where we are moving in Mauritius. We have, as I mentioned, one of the biggest tuna canneries in the Indian Ocean, Princess Tuna. And much of the waste, basically from there and from others, are valued. First, it is valued at the level of one company, which is called Marine Biotechnology. That is the company's name. So what they do is basically translate part of the waste into higher added value products, namely fish feed and other omega-3 concentrated products, among others. And even then, now we are coming forward with another, I mean, the private sector is investing in the residual waste, like the liquid waste and whatever kind of waste, to be able to produce biogas, which will be reused for the production of electricity in the two former factories. So this gives, I wanted to give very broadly and very quickly those kind of insights in terms of the actual stress on wild catch, which is true, but not on all species, the importance to offset that burden on certain states and to have certain specific support to develop new kind of fisheries, and how also to incentivize in terms of technology adoption and communication and network creation for developing new kinds and new types of aquaculture that would support this need in terms of consumption of fish. And thirdly, the valorization along the whole value chain, going not only into higher value added products on the fish aspect itself, but even in terms of fish oil, fish meal, and even further using all the biomass for the possibility of using, of producing electricity. And this whole rationalization of all the segments also has a huge business case, because when you have possibly less biomass, more constraints, then the only aspects in terms of the optimization of technology and the optimization of resource that makes the whole environment and the whole industry viable. And finally, this whole strategy, and I think it should be a concerted and even continuously improved strategy, should be embedded in the whole concept of certification, recognition, and branding that gives a value to products in this sense. So I thank you for your attention, and I hope that those insights could complement those very interesting previous intervention that has been made. Thank you very much, President. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramdi. I am very happy about your presentation, and first of all, I want to explain the importance of Indian Ocean Rim for Assoitica, for member of Assoitica. We start a cooperation with the Indian Ocean Rim from 3 years. Indian Ocean Rim is very, very important for us because inside the association there are the most important commercial partner for us. India, Indonesia, Mauritius, Australia, South Africa, for us is very, very important partner. And our idea to work with you is to analyze some aspect that you underline, and to analyze these problem, these question, these topics in the same table to find the same solution. And so I am very happy about your intervention because I think that the dialogue between our company and the company that work in the around the Indian Ocean is very, very important to protect the sea, to guarantee a good product for the European market and world market, and to study together new strategies to protect our sea, our production, aquaculture too, because at the moment this is the first, the most important goals for us. So I leave the floor to President Cortesi.
Thank you, Secretary. I want to underline some aspects of Dr. Ramdim's presentation. And in particular, I would like to underline the investment opportunities and exploitation of high value added products in such a way to have no waste along the food chain, fish oil, fish meal. So it is important to try to optimize the fish chains at every level. I experienced some of these in Scotland some years ago with the salmon fish chain, and nothing was destroyed. Everything was reutilized. And this is most important not only for the food chain, but for the world safety from all that comes from food should be reutilized, and we should exploit everything to reduce all that cannot be used, to have at last a compost or something that can be useful for the planets. Thank you very much for your intervention, Dr. Randini. I hope to have pronounced very well your name.
Perfect. We are in line with the time, with the agenda, and I think that to leave the floor to President Cortesi for the closing remarks.
Some closing remarks. First of all, I am very happy that in a different way, all the speakers said more or less the same things in a different way, with a different perspective, but we said the same things. I try to summarize some concept we heard this morning. To reduce losses, to respect our waters and our ocean, to reduce plastics, to increase transparencies, to increase information on nutritional and safety of fish foods, to follow consumers' requests and desires to reduce losses, to exploit investment opportunities. These are the main concepts I wrote during your interventions, during your speakers. If Vera Agostini or Giuseppe Palma wish to add something, I'll be very happy.
Yes, no, I have a comment, if you don't mind. Thank you for, first of all, again, thank you for this event and for those good closing remarks. I wanted to comment on your last one where you talked about exploiting investment opportunities, and wanted to note a word that hasn't come up, but we've all mentioned in concept, and that's the circular economy. You know, I think that that plays a key role in reduction of food loss and waste, and in helping us exploit investment opportunities. So I just wanted to note, since that word hadn't come up, but it's very related to all of the comments by the speakers, yourself, and Mr. Palma. So I just wanted to say that, but I fully agree with your closing summary. Excellent, very elegantly stated.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
concise. I think
Yes.
that these 5 or 10, no, 10 objects may summarize what we said today, and may summarize what we hope to do in the next future.
Yes, I wanted to introduce one aspect, and then I leave the floor to one attendee that asked to speak. About the circular economy, we have a webinar about the circular economy, but we see this aspect from the bank view, because we introduce in this aspect the financial aspect, because circular economy is economy and circular. Two concepts that work together, and we introduce in this round table that we want to create the most important group of bank in Italy, and we speak about that. But I think that the circular economy, from the economy aspect, first of all, must study under the scientific aspect. The scientific about the ecology, the livestock assessment, the food hygiene. First of all, the basis of this study is this technical and scientific aspect, and then the economic aspect. So I am very happy about the word of Vera. Before we have an attendee that want to speak, but at the moment I don't see. Okay, we are perfect in line with the time.
If we have 1 minute about circular economy, I'll take part to another conference table tomorrow, I think, on COVID and post-COVID. And when Giuseppe Palma spoke about circular economy, I asked myself what will happen after the COVID. There will continue a circular economy, or producer will try as possible, of course, not to be linked to this circular economy. In other terms, globalization is so strong after the pandemic period. What, Vera Agostini, I would like to see, what do you think about this problem? You are working in FAO, and probably you have a wider vision of these problems? I have some doubts of it. Please.
Well, that is a very interesting question, and I look forward to hearing more about the webinar. That it sounds like you have that you will focus on circular economy. I am personally not an expert in it, but I will tell you my reflections on it. I fully agree with you that the globalization of the world bring on a new dimension for the circular economy and how we do that and what we do about it. I think in some ways, just like the COVID pandemic in its instance was a quick motivator to bring innovation to the fish value chain. We adapted quickly in the local markets to do this. I think maybe the same will be for the circular economy. Maybe the way we think about it and approach it will take on new dimensions as COVID passes and the whole thing matures. And so, yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. Please let me know when the event.
I can't give a reply. I can answer this question. I only have doubts. I ask myself, and I don't have an answer.
Yeah, no. As you can see,
some change will occur.
Yes. I think it will be a different concept of circular economy once all these things settle. I think that's my key thought. I don't have an answer either, but that's just but I very much look forward to more dialogue on the circular economy. And you mentioned that you're doing an event. We would love to receive information on that. Perhaps some of my colleagues already have this, but I think that this is a very important aspect.
Thank you.
And is a nice aspect, the circular economy, the different way to understand it, to study circular economy, especially for one reason, is a new concept. So we need to study, and we must find a solution because our fish chain is different from other food chain. The beef, the egg, the milk are one product, a different kind of cow, but is the same. We have just shrimp, fish, mussel, cephalopod, and that inside this big family, we have a different way from cold water, from warm water. We have a different production, catch and aquaculture. Aquaculture in freshwater and marine. We have a lot of topics. So we need to study about that. And we are very happy if we can study with the FAO, with Indian Ocean Rim, and with all the partners to analyze and probably find a solution.
Yes, absolutely. Fully agree.
Thank you. So I leave the floor to President Cortesi to close this interesting webinar, the first webinar, and I want to underline that is not the first our fair. This is number 0 fair. So next year we start with a different aspect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I feel that this conversation should last more than this due time, because many important items we are facing more important items, in particular on circular economies. While one answer would be, and the FAO has this job, to increase the production, the transformation in the third countries. And so the export and the import would be not of raw material, but transformed fish products. And this would increase the economy in poor countries. Is this possible? Is this a dream, Vera?
I think it's possible.
It is still a dream.
But dreams are good. Dreams are important.
I see a future for poor countries to increase the in general, the fish chain production, transformation, also simply frozen or frozen and preparation, fish preparation. These are first steps that are not very difficult if we have money, enough money to do that.
Yes,
and
yes.
it would increase the growth, personal and industrial of these countries, of the third countries.
Yes, I think it's possible, and we all need to contribute to being part of the solutions, essentially, in a nutshell.
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
And we
have there is a lot of work, not a lot of good work to do for each of us, I think. Thank you for your participation. It was a pleasure. I may say it was a pleasure for me to begin with this talk, with this webinar, the first webinar of this digital seafood trade show. Best wishes to all of us.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.